everyone. Welcome to Shipwreck Sunday. Today is Derek's episode. We're doing his get to know me video. This is our lovely Commodore, as you guys have called him. So I hope you like that nickname.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to be reading some of your guys' questions, and this is the second time we're doing this video because the first time we did it, we had technical difficulties. So hopefully this one turns out. All right, at Nelly Bones says, since no one else wants to have suggestions, number one, favorite liner.
So I go back and forth between, obviously, Titanic was the one that got me into shipwrecks, the history of ships themselves got me interested in other ships, but Britannic, there's something about Britannic that just really intrigues me.
That white coloring.
The white coloring to the hospital ship. Something about it just really sticks out. And then, of course, the history of it. So probably a toss-up between those two.
Well, this one you already answered, the shipwreck that got you into him. Probably Titanic.
Titanic.
How did our co-hosts meet?
So we met at work. I was actually training at the store she was working at, and then she ended up getting transferred to another store. I got transferred to a different one before we even started dating, and then she asked me out on a date, and I thought it was a joke or some sick practical joke my new coworkers were pulling on me. And she asked me to a horror movie, so I was like even more suspicious. But thank God the movie is great. We both loved it, and the rest is history.
And finally, if you were transported to a shipwreck Magic Treehouse style while it's happening, which do you best see yourself being able to survive? And if you don't know what the Magic Treehouse books are, it's like two kids that get in a treehouse and they magically transport into historical events.
Great question. I think I would die in all of them pretty confidently. I think if I even got on a ship, it would therefore sink.
Would you just like curse it as soon as you step foot on it, you think?
Something like that. Luck of the Irish. Definitely not Titanic.
No, women and children first. You'd be one of those poor saps on the deck looking down.
I would be one of the dudes holding on to the bars, trying to say, hey, let me out. And I'd get stuck. I wouldn't even make it to the top. I don't know. What do you think? That's a great question.
I think you'd be okay on Britannic as long as you weren't in those two prematurely launched lifeboats. That's where the majority of the people died in that one. I think you'd be just fine on the Oceanos. That one, no one died on. But, I mean, it doesn't mean that the evacuation wasn't a shit show. It just means no one died.
I'd find a way.
Right. You would be the person who would just fall overboard for no reason. And we'd be like, why? Why did you do that?
Does that answer your question? I hope so. Thank you.
At the Dudester says, 2 important questions for a guy. Does Derek know how to drive a stick shift?
So drive a stick shift as in a lightsaber, then absolutely I do. No, I know how to. I've driven stick, but typically I've always ended up with an automatic. So it does leave my hands open for other things, but I can do it, but haven't really owned a manual car.
I mean...
or a stick shift car.
I mean, anytime I've owned a manual or driven a manual, I've killed it. And usually it's right in the middle of like, oh, the light just turned green and everyone's impatient to go. And here I am with a killed car and I'm panicking.
Usually it's your friends that'll say, you're not a man if you don't drive a stick. And then they stall it in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
and it's
usually,
like,
Yeah, exactly. And number 2, does Derek do simple cart maintenance, like change oil or anything like that?
Change oil, no. Detailing, yes. Change tire, stuff.
I don't like to clean my car. So he's usually the one that goes, your car is gross, let me clean it.
Simple stuff like that. I mean, I've changed oil, filled oil, but as far as regular, I'm just too busy of a dude to be able to really do all that stuff myself.
Well, plus we don't have, your car's pretty low to the ground, and we don't have anything that lifts it up, so it'd be really hard to get under your car. We'd have to dig a hole.
We'd have to get an actual jack or maybe even a lot of tools.
Right.
A lot of tools. Maybe someday. Hopefully someday.
Right. At Leopard One says, I have this mental image that he is always wearing a monocle and sporting an immaculately trimmed mustache.
Well, my mustache I'll usually let go for a week. Same with the cheeks, but the goatee I'll let go for 6 months, 3 months. It's pretty neat right now. Pretty nice and trimmed down right now. Just for you guys.
Yeah, he does. Normally, it's just like, let's go pig wild. And he says, but my question is a familiar one. What is your favorite armored fighting vehicle?
The Batmobile. No, probably
I think you said like the
the
Sherman,
Sherman.
from
The
Fury.
Yes. I've always been a big World War II guy, and that movie particularly gave me a big appreciation for tankers and tanks themselves. Just the history behind how they're made, the overall advancement in technology during that time. So if I had to choose one, probably the Batmobile, but no, it would be the
But
Sherman. The
which
Sherman.
Batmobile? I would say the Tumbler.
I would take any of them. I would take any, other than maybe the one in Batman and Robin. It's just not inconspicuous enough.
No,
It's got
I
a
think you want
disco
the
ball.
one. I think you want the one with Batman Forever.
I'm sorry, you wanted serious answers. The Sherman.
Okay, and at Clips and Films Melbourne says, pick one film that you never heard or you've seen the film before. So I have a list of 5 here. I'm going to show you the list.
Okay.
So number 1 is Mission of the Sharks. Have you heard of it or seen it?
No.
Okay. 2 is Greyhound. I'm pretty sure it's about Lusitania. I could be wrong because
I've
they called Lusitania
of
the
it.
Greyhound of the Seas. So,
Yes, right. I have not seen it, though.
all right. Number 3 is Down Periscope. That's got to be a submarine movie, but I've never seen it.
I have not.
All right. Number 4, PT 109.
I've heard of it, the ship and the movie, but never seen it.
And number 5, Poseidon Adventure. I've never seen this one.
I did see that one back in either middle school or high school, so I couldn't really tell you all that much about it. I was still waiting for like Poseidon the god to show up halfway through the film, because that's how childish my brain is. But I remember liking it. I remember it being decent, but I could be totally wrong. I could be totally off on that.
All right. At WH Production 217 says, you have a favorite soda? Mine is Mountain Dew.
I love Mountain Dew, although as I'm getting older, I don't know if it's just like because I usually have a Mountain Dew with like something spicy, Taco Bell. My
Right.
stomach will just get torn up, and it's probably the Taco Bell, not the Mountain Dew, but I've just kind of associated them together. I still love Mountain Dew. Sprite is nice and easy on my stomach. Fresca is nice and easy, but who doesn't love a good Coke?
Right.
I also love Pepsi. Not crazy about root beer, Dr.
You're
Pepper.
crazy.
Dr. Pepper to me tastes like a mix between Coke, Pepsi, and then a dash of root beer. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but it's just not my favorite. I've never ordered a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I've never been a Dr. Pepper person either.
Always just been safe with like, hey, something clear or a Coke and Pepsi.
Right. Did you know also that Mountain Dew is molecularly one molecule off from being plastic? I don't know if that's entirely true, but I heard that that was a thing. I wouldn't be
More you know.
surprised because it tastes delicious and sugary as hell.
Most people love the Baja Blasts.
Baja Blast is pretty
why
good.
that's why Taco Bell's still in business. Is for the
Yeah,
Baja Blast.
especially the Baja Blast freezes. I mean, I can get down with that.
Yeah.
All right, so I asked you guys in a community tab post what you wanted to know about Derek. I'm looking at the poll results here. We're going to ask him some of these. So, your favorite ships and how much you like ships.
So,
You're not
a great
as
question.
shippy as me.
surprise. She is the voice, the writer, the editor, the researcher, and the commenter of Shipwreck Sunday. I'm the number 1 cheerleader,
You are my best cheerleader.
but I've always been interested in ships, not necessarily always ocean liners, but my grandpa was in World War II. He was on a battleship. He was in the Navy for 20, 30 years, 40 years. I can't remember. He's obviously not around now for me to be able to ask him what ships he was on. So I wish I could give those answers as my favorite ships.
I'm searching.
We're
I'm trying to
looking
figure
it up. We'll figure it out.
I'm narrowing it down. There's a lot of
We're-
ships in World War II.
And a lot of family members we got to talk to. So there is that. I've always had an interest in ships. We had a picture of it laying around as a kid, so I was always intrigued there. Of course, the Titanic movie introduced the other sisters to me, as well as the Cunard lines. But obviously, meeting Elinor and seeing her love for ships and her understanding of ships and how there's kind of an art form, not kind of, there is an art form to the craftsmanship and even to how they're ran. Uh, so it's really opened my eyes to this whole other world and this whole other side of the internet, this other niche of
Yeah, there's
people
like
that
a whole
all
club.
truly love ships and everything alongside it. And some of them like to kind of make fun and poke fun of the disasters, and some of
I've
them
never
like to
been
take
that
it
way.
more seriously, and some do a little bit of a mix. And whatever your preferred preference is, I think it's great. It's a great community, very supportive. Once in a while, you get like a toxic Nazi in there, but who wants them
Right.
to the party?
None of us.
Right. I think this might answer another question coming up, but seeing the overall growth of Shipwreck Sunday from kind of now being removed from it for about a year, I think, um, has really been a cool ride from me personally, just getting to see it go from this kind of smaller podcast on the internet, still growing, to kind of growing more towards a documentary style of not just delivery and research, but presentation. I mean, she'll show me these ships that she finds that's like, hey, there's only 10 pictures, but this is going to be an hour long episode. There's
Like,
only 10 pictures in existence of this ship. So I've got to find 30 pictures of one dude and then all these other landscapes and oceans and have text coming on the screen. Like, that's all her. The research,
oh,
all
you're
of it.
sweet.
So once in a while, I'll help out with maybe like an idea of like, hey, maybe change the color on a thumbnail, or maybe, I can't quite read that from across the room. Little things like that. But she is
I
truly
do.
the Wonder Woman of Shipwreck.
I do have you give me a lot of input like that. Like, hey, can you read this baby pink for SS Ward, huh? I like the baby pink.
And
And
I was
you're
like, you
like,
know
okay.
what? You might get some people thinking it's a little feminine, but it stands out. Looks good.
I was like, ooh,
Do it.
I'm into the baby pink. All right, your next one is your hobbies, your favorites, like your favorite food, favorite colors, things like that, and your passions in life, other than Batmobiles.
So passions in life, definitely movies. As long as I can remember, I've always loved filmmaking. Not
I've
making
never
films,
met somebody
but
who loves movies as much
just
as
a
you
big
do.
nerd, a kid who never grew up. As far as hobbies go, unfortunately, I don't have a long list of them. I like getting outside. I love swimming. I love spending time with my family, playing guitar, watching movies, playing video games, reading books, comic books. What else is there?
I
Am I
mean,
forgetting
you
something?
also like to go
We
for a good
we've
drive.
been collecting pets over the last few years.
We
We've
also do a lot of Lego building.
not a whole lot, but we had a little few stints in there.
I mean, when I was pregnant, we sat down on the floor together and built a big spaceship that probably took like 3
Don't get
days.
into it. It can be addicting. It's not having it, it's building it.
Right, because then you're like, oh, yes, it's a project that I can complete and be
You
satisfied
get
by
that
it.
little reward system going
Yeah.
off. Ding ding
Yeah, the
ding.
dopamine. The
Yes.
dopamine comes back into your brain. You're like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Favorite colors?
Yeah.
Red, blue, purple, black. It's not really a color, but gray, orange, yellow. I'm pretty open when it comes to colors. I think my least favorites is probably an easier answer. Lavender.
You've hated lavender.
I like pink.
Always.
I'm not against pink. Brown. It's kind of boring. Um, yeah, I think that's about it for the color spectrum.
Okay, but this one's real loaded. What's your favorite food?
Now,
Because I told the peeps that I like veggie yakisoba the best. And then one of our peeps is from Japan, and I'm like, invite us over.
chicken yakisoba.
I
Oh
love
my
yakisoba.
god,
It's
so
so
good.
good.
Fried rice. I even like shrimp. So good. Lately I've been on like a chili and cornbread kind of
He
kick.
really has been. He's like, can we have more cornbread? I'm like, we can bake some more, but didn't we have some yesterday? He's like, I ate it. I'm like, oh my god.
It's just, yeah, it's a problem. I also really love breakfast food. So good
Oh,
steak and
yeah.
eggs, omelets,
That's you.
pancakes, waffles, French toast, you name it.
Breakfast burritos, especially.
Breakfast burritos, breakfast sandwiches. Had one earlier. So I mean, yeah, probably breakfast food just as a whole. You also got to have some nice fruits and some healthy foods, not just
Right.
butter and syrup. But
But whenever we don't know what to make for dinner, I'm like, "What do you want for dinner?" And he's like,
hey, we got eggs,
"Breakfast."
we got bread. That's all I need.
Just need some eggs, cheese, bread, breakfast sandwich. Bam, we're
Bam,
done.
or French toast. The possible combinations are endless.
Right, exactly. All right, we also did some get to know you quizzes leading up to this, and the first one we started with was your favorite superhero.
By the way, you guys nailed these
You
get to know
guys
me
know
quizzes. I'm
him
like,
better than I do.
I haven't been on this channel in like a year. How do you know me? Yes, favorite. What was it?
Superhero.
Superhero. The Flash.
Always.
Wally West. I'm a 90s kid. Early 2000s is when I started getting a lot of memories solidified in my brain forever. And one of those memories was watching the Justice League animated series. Michael Rosenbaum is Wally West. There's like a 20-year period of time in the comics where Wally West was everybody's Flash. Nobody knew who Barry Allen was. Nobody cared
Right.
who Barry Allen was. And maybe a lot of you also were like, who?
Who? Well, if you mention Jay Garrick, they're like probably like, who?
You know Bruce Wayne's Batman. That's
Well,
all
it's
you
because
need to know.
has there ever been anybody else other than Dick Grayson after he's done being Nightwing?
Terry McGinnis.
Oh, well, right, but that's Batman Beyond.
Well, that's Batman. So. Bane had a Joker. Superman.
So, oh yeah, well I guess you're right. Yeah.
The list goes on.
See, he's the one who would know these things.
Kid. Never grew up.
That's a good thing though. Keeps you young. All right, then the peeps, I asked them what your favorite ship was, and they all had you pegged for Titanic.
So earlier I did say Titanic, but it's a coin toss, so Britannic. Mine's changed since then. Keely Laro is also great.
You also love Olympic. Olympic. Great too.
Your video on Olympic was the one that really opened my eyes to Olympic because, Britannic had a very distinct, different look. And yes, Olympic and Titanic do as well. But I just had never really gotten around to really giving Olympic
It's because
the
she
time
didn't
she
sink.
deserved.
It's because she
Right.
didn't sink. No one
Right,
thinks
so
about
people
her.
don't think about her as much, and she never became a hospital ship, so she never had like a drastic white and green redesign.
Right. She did have the dazzle paint,
Right,
but
which
it didn't
was
last forever.
badass.
Dazzle paint was amazing.
And that's why I'm like, maybe Olympic is my favorite, huh?
Well, then you need to see Mauritania's dazzle paint scheme with the checkerboard.
I think you've shown me.
She's
but
gorgeous. She's gorgeous.
That's another good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Keely
but-
Lara. What did I say? Keely Laro. SS Andrea Doria. I mean, I could
There's
obviously
also the
start.
classics of like Lusitania and stuff like that too. Like,
Yeah, right. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Like Lusitania's very tragic, interesting story, and she was also painted very gorgeously. So I
Big
mean,
fan of the White Star liners and the Cunard liners, if that helps. World War II battleships as well. I like a good sub story.
I need to do more submarines because I think I've only covered two. I've covered the Tragic Titan submersible and the Kursk K-141.
And as a kid, I'll admit it, I liked the Pirates of the Caribbean movies when I was young, and there was a little phase in there that I was like really obsessed with pirate ships and the European military ships. I can't think of what
the
they're
schooners, the frigates, the
beautiful,
Yeah.
masterfully.
Someone will put
pieces
it in the
of
comments what they're
art.
actually called. I
Right,
think they're
please,
called
thank you.
brigantines.
Yeah.
But did you know the Black Pearl is a real ship? It's a real pirate
Yes.
ship.
Yes.
We may have to cover that one at some
I've been
point.
saying it since day one.
I
It's
think
the
I've
one she
only
won't do.
covered one that was before the 1800s, and that was the Sao Jose Paquete de Africa. And that one was so hard because there's like no information on it. There was literally one picture
Right.
of some of the wreckage. But there were no pictures of the actual ship, so I had to guess what this thing looked like.
Like
It
I was saying
difficult.
earlier, how do you do a 20-minute to an hour-long podcast with no pictures?
Well, I mean, you just look at pictures of. I mean, it was in South Africa, and that's gorgeous. So I just put pictures of South
There
Africa.
you go. There you go.
But another thing we asked you was your favorite Dragon Ball Z character.
Favorite Dragon Ball Z character? Who asked that on Shipwreck Sunday?
Me.
Ah, I see. She's paid to ask. I'd say Gohan. That's probably always been my favorite since I was a kid, but as I've been rewatching the series and for the first time going through Dragon Ball Super, some of the things they do with Gohan in the very beginning,
Frustrating.
when he's in the green tracksuit and gets invited to the tournament but doesn't go. Vegeta is probably my favorite. Piccolo's up there. Goku, obviously, still. Bardock, who's not got a lot of time to shine, but he's awesome. Trunks.
Yeah,
It's
he's
kind of
cool.
hard not to love Trunks. I mean, Kid Trunks I've always liked, but adult Trunks, he just shows up and he takes care of the.
He
I
just
won't.
chops
I
him.
won't say no spoilers in case you haven't seen it.
In
But
case you haven't seen this
he shows
25-year-old
up with a
show.
sword and kills someone really quickly, and it's pretty shocking, pretty cool. For those of you that don't like anime, but maybe if you do like comic book movies, give Dragon Ball Z a shot. Maybe Dragon Ball Z Kai, there's no filler, or less filler, I should say. A little bit easier to get into. And there's a lot of similarities between Dragon Ball and kind of even DC lore.
Right. Yeah, I would say so because Goku's kind of like Superman.
A little
A little bit.
Ooh,
A
don't
little-
say it.
Ooh, oh, I just shots fired across the bow. Well, you kind of answered this one a little earlier, but I asked the peeps what they thought your favorite episode was. Literally, like 95% of them said Olympic. They've got you like down to a T.
You got me. Guilty.
Like my favorite is Akili Laro still, but like I'm really proud of that episode.
That's another
but-
good one.
But you really liked my Olympic one, probably because you hadn't really heard much about Olympic.
Right, and
And
Olympic's
then
the bigger name. It's a sister ship, so
you gotta love like the comments. Okay, so during Titanic month, I had a bunch of community tab posts go up. I can't find which one it was, but Leopard one of our regulars on here was like, it's like, I'm sorry, Titanic fans, I can't hear you over the much more efficient oil-fired boilers here on Olympic. I'm like,
well,
the sass, I love it.
but is Leopard 1 wrong?
He's not, no, because it was a lot more efficient, and especially with the oil-fired boilers, like, oh boy, she was going faster. It's too bad that they didn't save her as not a hospital, oh Jesus, as a hotel ship, because that would have been amazing.
That would have been great.
That would've been too good.
If any of them could have been redesigned or salvaged in any way for us to be able to go there today, I think it'd be a great.
That's why we gotta
Great
protect Queen Mary,
museum.
man, because once she disappears, that phase of ocean liners is done. She was technically a White Star liner because she was built when it was Cunard White Star. So other than Nomadic, which is a tender boat, she's the last ocean liner we have from that period.
Yeah,
And that's
which
why when
is-
some people are like, "Oh, just let it go. It's history.
we
it
keep
happens."
buildings
It's like,
from those times. We have museums from those
Right.
times. We have airplanes from those times. We have jets. We have Warhawk museums.
right.
So why don't we for ships?
Right, they have the battleship Texas still, and they maintain her. She's
Yeah.
just fine.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they can't do the same thing for Queen Mary, but that's a whole different rant. I made a whole video on that.
Go check it out. What are you doing here?
They're meeting you, sir.
Oh, well, thank you.
But do you have any last minute requests for us? Any last minute things you'd like to tell us about your love of ships? Other than the fact that you got me this cool little Titanic here. So here, I'll show the peeps. So this Titanic he got me is when can you see it? When a Titanic display came through town, and they had actual pieces from the ship, and in there, in that little window, is an actual piece of coal from Titanic. And he got me that, and also I couldn't decide between this and a blanket that was White Star themed. He's like, "Do you want both?" I'm like,
Right. It came with the authenticity
Yeah.
certificate. And
Yeah.
That was cool. That was cool.
I was like, I
Fine.
have an actual piece of coal from Titanic in my house. So
I would just say my personal message to the Shipwrecker fans, or we need a
our
name
crew,
for you guys.
the
yeah.
Shipwrecker crew.
There you go.
There
I love
are
it.
peeps.
I love it. I hope you are as proud of her as I am of what she's been able to accomplish. I'm not just saying that.
He's paid by the
She's-
Husband Association.
You know, we're at what, 2,000 subs almost?
Almost, we're close.
And next stop there is 10,000 subs. She doesn't have an end in sight of when to stop this whole YouTube thing, this whole
When
YouTube
ships
journey.
stop sinking.
Well, there you go. And when her love runs out, it's not going to happen. We've been together for almost a decade now, and I can tell you, her love for shipwrecks is not going anywhere. So if that's ever a concern for any of you, don't got anything to worry about.
I'll be here for a while.
I personally have just been blessed to be a part of the journey, being able to be there in the early days, and that was really fun. And to see how much it's grown and to see how much it still grows. I mean, there's not just Leopard One, but so many of you guys and you regulars in the comments. I I try to interact with you guys, but I see that she's already gotten to it. Even when she's on vacation, I'm like, all right, let's see who's said something today. And then it's like, oh, ding, 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 ding. Like she's already got you. So sorry I didn't get to interact with you guys more.
I find Wi-Fi and I'm like, he just
She's
got
on
injured.
the top of a hill.
Like, well, yeah, and you just got injured. So I'm like, you know what? He's going to have a hard time replying to all these. So I'm going to jump in and say hi to everyone. So thank you guys for suggesting this video, first of all.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you for being here. And we hope you guys liked the video, do all the fun stuff, like, subscribe, all that things that all the YouTubers tell you to do. And we will see you guys tomorrow for MV Goya. So we'll see you then.
Peace.
And here's our producer sleeping on the job. Rico, you want to say hi, bud? You say hi. Good boy. Good boy.